And welcome to the Security Guy and CIA Spy Pod broadcast. I am Robert Tissoliano, and this is...
By default, Peter Warmka. Hi, Robert. How are you?
What's up, buddy? I'm good, thank you. Nice to see you.
Good to see you, too. We're getting into the holiday season, but the world of concern about security is always on the, always there, and even more these days, I think.
Oh, man, it's messy out there. And I've been seeing more and more reports of deep fakes and voiceovers. People, bad guys, infiltrating people's mobile phones, social media accounts, sending off, scaring them by calling them and having the loved one, in the background screaming, which is like, audio that they sampled from wherever. And the loved one, paying to get the loved one safe. Like, it's just ridiculous that this is actually happening. And then people are falling for it. Not that like they wouldn't, but like that the alarm has not been sounded to be aware of this to the degree that like the entire world knows about it. Like, most people aren't paying attention and not enough is being said.
Yeah, it used to be a few years ago, right, where our home was our sanctuary. I mean, we really didn't have to worry. We felt secure in our home. Okay, so it could be a home burglary. Yeah, but they're very, very rare that most of our listeners are going to have to worry about that. But everything else, I mean, your home is not your sanctuary anymore. If you're connected, you are very vulnerable to a lot of these things.
Yeah, because bad guys can come in via your mobile phone while you're sitting in your kitchen, and they can freak you out that your daughter's been kidnapped. And it's like, whoa, what do you mean? And like, the reality of something like that actually happening is essentially slim to none, right? I mean, how many people do you know that have been kidnapped, right?
I mean, for real, it's very, very, very low. But to me, what's even more alarming, though, is you don't know. I mean, you have no idea who is in contact with your children on a regular basis, right? I mean, if they'd be going out and happen to see somebody outside of the home, you would pretty much have an idea, or easier to know. They'd be less approachable. But now, I mean, they're in the room, door closed, sometimes door locked, and they could be conversing with anybody.
Anybody, yeah. All right, so check this out, right? This is from 404 Media. America's polarization has become the world's side hustle. All right, so let me explain how all this works, right? So what you see here are like all ads on Fiverr and elsewhere, right? These are all ads like to create a USA, YouTube channel that, all revolves around, well, let me explain it to you. Here it is, right? So a new feature on X, right, like the old school Twitter, is making people suddenly realize that some large portion of the divisive, hateful, and spammy content designed to inflame tensions, or at the very least is designed to get lots of engagement on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and so forth, is being published by accounts that are pretending to be based in the United States, but are actually run by people in other countries like Bangladesh, Vietnam, India, Cambodia, Russia. An account called Ivanka News is based in Nigeria, Red Pilled Nurse from Europe, Maga Nadine in Morocco, and Baron Trump News is based in Macedonia, among others. So these are inauthentic viral accounts. These are just the tip of the iceberg. A huge amount of the viral content about American politics and American news on social media is from sock puppet accounts and bot accounts. So sock puppet and bot accounts monetized by people in other countries. The rise of easy-to-use free AI generative tools has supercharged this effort, and social media monetization programs have incentivized this effort and are almost entirely to blame. The current disinformation and slop phenomenon on the internet today makes the days of Russian bot farms and fake news pages from Cyprus seem quaint. The problem is now decentralized and distributed across the world, and is almost entirely funded by social media companies themselves. Essentially meaning that, companies like Meta, Facebook, they profit from this, Right. And even X, they profit from this. When you click links that ultimately you're clicking on ads on X or on Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg is making money for his, Hawaiian lair. Elon Musk is getting paid like to fund his, 14 kids and so forth. Like all of this disinformation is being set up overseas by, everyday people that understand the divisiveness here in the U.S. is something that they can capitalize on. Peter,
and it's not illegal, right? I mean, for the most part, unless they're stealing content from, from other ones, violation of copyright, let's say.
Yeah, no, it's not illegal. So, Peter, in your own words, explain what's going on here. Like, I've certainly laid it out, but explain what you see is going on here.
Mm-hmm. Well, as I mentioned, that we used to be, that back a few years ago, we were concerned about all of this inflammatory, websites that were popping up, which seemed to be trying to create divisions within the American society. And those, for the most part, probably the majority of those were receiving support, if not funding, from nation states such as the Russians, the Chinese, etc., trying to create division within our society. To weaken our society is in their interests. So that was been kind of like the focus of how we thought were the ones who were primarily responsible for this. But now this same thing, individuals who are creating this false content is creating content for the purpose of getting people riled up, to get people to come back to those sites. And in the essence, it's doing the same thing, but on a huge scale now, as these other former sites were doing when they were being sponsored by state actors. Now the main reason is not politics. The main reason for the existence of these accounts is to monetize them, right? So you mentioned these are individuals, very smart individuals, that maybe themselves, they don't think they're doing anything malicious per se, as far as hurting people, but they're designing sites and monetize in order to get a huge following and getting people somewhat addicted to coming back to those sites because they're putting things in there that people say, yeah, I agree with that position. Or, I like these viral videos that I'm seeing here, that in the end of the day, though, it is very harmful to consumers and to all of us, really.
Yeah. So in other words, back in the 2016 election, Cambridge Analytica, who had backdoor access to Facebook's information, basically would create sock puppet accounts and bot accounts targeted towards Americans, essentially to get them all upset. So, for example, you might be a Democrat and you post some information about the Republicans that you don't like, and then Cambridge Analytica would take their technology, they'd intervene with the sock puppet account on your Democratic Facebook page, and they would start accusing you of this and that and saying hateful speak, and you would react and respond angrily, not really understanding that you're basically the puppet and Cambridge Analytica is the puppeteer. And I believe it was, I believe it was the and correct me if I'm wrong, it was the Trump administration that it was the Russians that initiated this. Thank you. Apologies. Yes. It was the Russians that initiated this, and because they understood that if the Republicans got in, it would serve the Russians' interests. So it was to the benefit of the disinformation campaign that Russia was intervened in that would serve their needs. And now that same disinformation, while it's probably additionally being orchestrated by Russia and China, there's also individuals that are doing this to essentially feed their families. When you think about it,
yeah,
it's just they're creating these various accounts because they know that they can weave in links for advertising for whatever in these same ads or in these same responses, and you start clicking stuff. You think that you're clicking on getting access to the profile page of that person, when in fact you're clicking a link that goes to a product, and the link to that product, someone's getting paid as a result of that click.
Mm-hmm. Well, what really magnifies this prolific growth in these particular sites is AI. I mean, AI now is enabling individuals who can help create the content, right? It can help create the sites. It can help the targeting of these videos. So I mean, prior to AI use of AI, I mean, these existed, of course, but not to this level. Now it's just like exponential.
Yeah.
Growth.
AI has allowed the disinformation to be scalable. It's allowed the creators to create entire websites, entire personas, and to automate the majority of the process in such a way that it's hands off for the the seller of the service. Once they create it, they can market it and they can sell it, and the users themselves. This is like this is a form of disinformation as a service.
Yeah, but what do we, how can this be stopped, really? I mean, it seems like it's sort of like a drug. I mean, as long as there is a demand for the drug, there's always going to be a supply. And unfortunately, here, it's pretty much worldwide, but look at the United States, people want to consume this they call it slop, right? And some way they'll go to it. It's like, and it becomes an addiction. They'll go back to it because for some reason it fulfills within them, it satisfies the need, right? And I don't know what the reason is, but consumers are going for this thing. If there wasn't a demand for it, it would not exist.
Facebook, Meta, and X, Twitter, both have the ability to stop this, or at a minimum, stem the tide of it. They do. However, they're making revenue. They're generating enough revenue where they've made a conscious decision not to stop it, or at least that's what it seems.
I agree with you, and I think we've talked a lot about kind of like the dangers of AI, or how AI is used by various threat actors, right? And until these platforms, I agree with you, they might say that they are taking certain measures, and they probably are. They're probably taking some positive measures to try to limit the negative effects of some of these things on their platform, but until there are, in my opinion, certain regulations that are put into place where there are significant penalties for non-compliance, I think that's maybe the only way forward, because we can't necessarily have a totally free market when it comes to how online is being utilized.
And meanwhile, for the everyday consumer, all of our pod broadcast listeners and viewers, how you can mitigate this is simply don't react and respond to all the noise out there. When someone is disagreeing with you, and you have the impulse to react and respond, either kindly or angrily, really doesn't matter. Just the act of responding, you're fueling the fire. You're legitimizing the sock puppet, the bot. And so, how important is it to react and respond? Is it really going to change the narrative? Are you really going to get somebody on your team? In the end, I don't know that you will. I think that once people have made up their minds in regards to what's going on out there, I think that's that. The division that we are experiencing as a result of a few people, strategizing to initiate that division, because they know if you create that division, then you're essentially saying, don't trust them, trust me. And Russia fine-tuned this, and back in the days of Stalin, and the U.S. Or at least some here in the U.S. have embraced it, and it's not okay, because we don't want or need any of this. It's not helpful. All it's doing is making us agitated, irritated, and it's affecting our mental health too.
It really is. And speaking about mental health, I mean, what I've seen, and you've seen, I think we're going to talk about this as well, is how especially the youth are so exploited by things that targeting of them on the internet. And there's been a number of countries of recent, and even some discussion here by some senators about whether or not they need to make some steps forward and have legislation that will basically prohibit individuals under a certain age to have access to the internet. And so I think it was Denmark and Australia. This is in the news today.
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting. First of all, whether people agree with it or not, and if they agree with it, how that could be, not laws can be passed, right? But how can something like that go into effect and really work? I don't know.
So what you're seeing here, AP reports Denmark's government aims to ban access to social media for children under the age of 15. So here you see Carolyn Stage, who's the Danish minister for digitization, on Friday announced an agreement to ban access to social media for anyone under 15, ratcheting up the pressure for big tech firms as concerns grow that kids are getting too swept up in a digitized world of harmful content and commercial interests. The move would give some parents, after a specific assessment, the right to let their children access social media from age 13. It wasn't immediately clear how such a ban would be enforced. Many tech platforms have already restrict preteens from sign up. Officials and experts say such restrictions don't always work, which is true, but that does not necessarily mean we, adopt a fatalist attitude and say, well, why bother?
Right. I mean, kids are not supposed to have access to alcohol, right? It's illegal.
Alcohol, pornography,
smoking,
guns,
certain tobacco
right?
products.
Yeah. I mean,
they can't drive a car until they're 16 after they've passed the test, right?
Yeah. There is something to be said for this. I didn't give my girls did not get their mobile phones until they were 14. And I felt that 14 was still too young. I still believe that. And to be perfectly frank, things honestly kind of went downhill after they get their phones. In other words, like, you could see that their mental health was affected by their access. Even though we restricted certain things, they still get access. And, years later, I've seen it all play out. And all the parents that I know that gave their kids the phones prior to the age of 14, I'm talking like 10, 11, 12, and gave them access to social media. There's no other way for me to say this. Those kids are even messier.
Mm-hmm.
They just are, from my experience. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so the regulation of getting access, I mean, I've always said this is not a technology problem. This is a parenting problem. And it's still a parenting problem. It still is. But when you have problems that the parents aren't essentially recognizing, this is when government steps in, because they're saying, hey, parents, you are ultimately responsible for your kids' well-being, but we're seeing that you're not effectively doing your job. So here we are, pointing this out to you, and we've said it numerous times, but now we're going to go to the tech companies because the tech companies aren't self-policing. Therefore, it's time for us to step in. And I think it's good. I think the parents ultimately have the responsibility of making the change in their families' lives. But, frankly, it's about time the freaking government stepped in. And Australia, social media ban takes effect, I think today. The measure, which affects anyone under 16, is one of the most sweeping efforts in the world to safeguard young people from the potential harms of the platforms. And they are harmful.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think I'm very encouraged by these efforts. I mean, we'll see how it is, a few months down the road, how this evolves. But at least seeing some of the governments saying, "Hey, that time is to act now and to start doing these things." And there's going to be a lot of challenges, going to be a lot of difficulty. At the end of the day, individuals who want to gain access to these platforms, whatever, even if it's somewhat. Well, it would be illegal, right? If they're banned, if children under, let's say, 18 or 16, whatever, are banned from it and they do it, it's illegal. But there's always going to be a way to get to them. But I think the more controls we can try to put in place, the better.
Yeah,
and states. There was a state, right, that tried to ban. I don't know if it was TikTok, for anybody to gain access, for youth to gain access to it. I don't remember which state it was, and I don't really know how effective they were in trying to be able to ban it.
All the power to them. I mean, more banning the better. Again, having the fatalist attitude, if they can access it, you can't stop them. So why bother? Is not a good idea. We don't engage in fatalist attitudes when it comes to protecting our kids, protecting our being, protecting our bank accounts, and so on. So, parents, don't give up because it seems overwhelming. Do something about it. So, Peter, where can everybody find you? What do you got going on? Give us your pitch.
Well, you always can find me at counterintelligence-institute.com, or even better, on my my LinkedIn. I'm probably as for you, winding down this year and already getting requests for some proposals for next year. I'm looking forward to what next year is going to bring, but I'm really pumped up because I think at the end of the day, even though I see so many problems and sometimes it feels like we're losing the battle, I still feel I'm energized by the fact that there's more that needs to be done, and I think we can make that contribution and be in this fight. I'm going to be in this fight forever as long as I can, breathe. I think it's not about the money. Money's always great, but I think it's I really feel it's a purpose, especially looking at how we can help kids, especially looking at how we can maybe help the elderly. If I can save one elderly person from having their life savings robbed from them, to me, it's worth it. Just that.
Yeah. Check out Peter's book, Confessions of a Spy, The Art of Human Hacking. And what's the other title, Peter?
The other one is Why Are You Messing With Me? A Senior Survival Guide on Fraud, Privacy, and Security. And both of those are available on Amazon.
Yeah. And I am available at protectnowllc.com. Again, that's protectnowllc.com. Peter, last words.
Hey, we're going into the holiday season. Beware of scammers. They are everywhere, and not just for yourself, but also for your loved ones. Spend time, have conversations with your loved ones over these holiday seasons, because I heard it's a movie line, but it was said, a family is one of the most important things, and they said no, family is the most important thing in our life. I really believe that.
I appreciate you, man. Happy holidays.
Hey, same to you.
Peace out.